For years, the auto industry told us there were only two paths left. Either you go fully electric, or you stay stuck with an old-fashioned engine that pollutes more and costs more to run every single day. Toyota picked one side. Tesla picked the other. Tata has been trying to balance both. And in the middle of all this, a Chinese company that most people still associate with cheap electronics batteries has quietly built something that neither side saw coming. Now the question is, has BYD just made the entire debate about EVs versus petrol cars pointless? Has it built an engine so efficient that it changes what every other company has to do next? We will find out what this new hybrid engine actually is, how it works, why it is making Toyota, Tata, and even Tesla nervous, and whether this really is the moment the EV industry changes forever. But before we move ahead in the video, if you have not subscribed to our channel yet, make sure to do it now. To understand why this moment matters so much, we first need to understand where BYD actually came from. Most people today know BYD as an electric vehicle company, but that is not how the company started at all. BYD was founded in 1995, and in the beginning, it had nothing to do with cars. It started as a battery manufacturer, making rechargeable batteries for phones and small electronics. At that time, no one would have guessed that this company would one day challenge Toyota and Tesla in the automobile world. In the early 2000s, BYD made a decision that looked strange to many people. It entered the automobile business, even though it had no real experience building cars. Many analysts at the time doubted the move. They believed a battery company trying to build cars was taking on more than it could handle. But BYD had one advantage that most traditional automakers did not. It already understood batteries better than almost anyone else in the industry. While companies like Toyota and Volkswagen were experts in engines, gearboxes, and traditional manufacturing, BYD was already thinking about energy storage and how it could be used to power vehicles. This gave the company a very different starting point compared to its competitors. Over the next 2 decades, BYD built up its own factories, developed its own battery technology, and slowly expanded across passenger cars, buses, and commercial vehicles. By the time the world started taking electric vehicles seriously, BYD was not a newcomer trying to catch up. It had already spent years preparing for exactly this moment. Today, BYD is one of the largest new energy vehicle makers in the world, selling millions of vehicles every year, and it has expanded aggressively into markets across Asia, Europe, Latin America, and now increasingly into India. But what makes BYD different from many other automakers is not just its size. It is the fact that the company controls almost every part of its own supply chain. It builds its own batteries, its own chips, and now its own engines. That level of control is exactly what allowed it to build the technology we are about to talk about. Now let's talk about the actual problem that every automaker, whether it is Toyota, Tata, or Tesla, has been trying to solve for years. Pure electric vehicles are wonderful in cities. They are quiet, quick, and cheap to run on a daily commute. But the moment a driver plans a long trip, the old anxiety comes back. Where is the next charger? Will it be free when I get there? How long will I have to wait? For a large part of the world, especially in countries like India where charging infrastructure is still developing outside major cities, this concern is very real. A bigger battery is not always the answer, because bigger batteries mean higher prices, heavier vehicles, and more raw materials, many of which are already in short supply globally. This is exactly the gap that plug-in hybrid technology has tried to fill for years. But most hybrid systems on the market have been a compromise. They give you some electric range, then hand things over to a fairly ordinary petrol engine that is not particularly efficient once the battery runs low. Toyota built its reputation on hybrids with the Prius decades ago, but its systems were designed around reliability and simplicity, not around squeezing every last bit of efficiency out of the fuel. Tata, on the other hand, has focused heavily on pure electric vehicles for the Indian market, betting that affordability and charging expansion will win out over time. Tesla, as always, has stayed completely committed to full electric, refusing to build a hybrid at all. Each company placed its bet in a different direction. BYD looked at this landscape and asked a different question. What if you did not have to choose? What if a hybrid engine could be efficient enough that it barely felt like a compromise anymore? This is where BYD's newest generation hybrid system comes in, and this is the part that has genuinely surprised engineers across the industry. In March 2026, BYD unveiled what it calls its 6th generation dual-mode hybrid system. To understand why this matters, you need to understand one number that engineers obsess over, called thermal efficiency. In simple terms, thermal efficiency tells you how much of the energy inside the fuel actually turns into motion and how much is wasted as heat. For most of automotive history, ordinary petrol engines have managed somewhere between 30 and 35% thermal efficiency. That means for every unit of fuel you put in, less than half of it actually moves the car forward. The rest disappears through the exhaust pipe and the radiator as wasted heat. Toyota, considered one of the best in the world at building efficient engines, managed to push its dynamic force engines to around 41%, and that was seen as a remarkable achievement at the time. BYD's previous generation hybrid system had already beaten that, reaching just over 46% thermal efficiency, a number that made headlines across the industry. But with this new 6th generation system, BYD has pushed thermal efficiency past 48%. To put that in perspective, this is being called the most thermally efficient mass-produced engine ever built for a passenger car. And the result of that efficiency is staggering on paper. BYD claims that a vehicle equipped with this new system, when you combine a full battery with a full tank of petrol, can travel more than 2,300 kilometers before needing to stop for fuel or charge. That is roughly the distance from Delhi to Chennai, and most of the way back, all without stopping once. So how exactly does BYD manage to squeeze out this level of efficiency? The heart of the system is a specially designed 1.5-liter engine that the company calls the Xiaoyun engine. The first thing to understand is that, much like Mazda's rotary generator idea, this engine is not built the same way as a normal petrol engine that has to do everything at once: accelerate, cruise, climb hills, and idle in traffic. Because this engine works inside a plug-in hybrid system, it does not need to be a jack of all trades. Most of the time, the electric motor is what actually drives the wheels. The petrol engine's main job is to either recharge the battery or occasionally add extra power directly to the wheels during high-load situations like highway overtaking. Because the engine is not constantly being asked to change speed and load the way a normal car engine is, BYD's engineers could design it to run mostly in its most efficient zone, almost like a machine tuned for one specific job rather than a jack of all trades. This alone unlocks a huge efficiency advantage. On top of that, the Xiaoyun engine uses an extremely high compression ratio, higher than almost anything else in mass production, which allows it to extract more usable energy from every drop of fuel. It uses what is called an Atkinson cycle, a combustion design that trades a little raw power for a significant gain in efficiency, which is exactly the trade-off you want in a hybrid system where the electric motor is already handling most of the acceleration duties. BYD has also added an exhaust gas recirculation system, which helps the engine burn fuel more completely and reduces wasted energy. And in a detail that engineers have pointed out as particularly clever, BYD introduced what it calls split cooling technology, where different parts of the engine are cooled at different rates depending on how much heat they actually generate, instead of treating the whole engine block the same way. All of these changes stack on top of each other, and the combined result is this record-breaking efficiency number that has caught the attention of engineers everywhere. Now let's talk about why this is making Toyota, Tata, and Tesla nervous, because each of them is affected in a completely different way. Start with Toyota. For years, Toyota has positioned itself as the global leader in hybrid technology, a reputation it built carefully since the launch of the original Prius. But BYD's new system does not just match Toyota's hybrid efficiency, it goes well beyond it. If BYD can offer a vehicle with electric-first driving, a 2,000-plus kilometer range, and lower running costs, all while avoiding the price premium of a large battery-pure EV that directly threatens the exact customer base Toyota has spent decades building loyalty with, then there is Tata. In India specifically, Tata has committed heavily to pure electric vehicles, positioning itself as the affordable EV leader in the country. But India is also a country where long-distance driving between cities is extremely common, and where charging infrastructure outside major metros is still catching up. If BYD, or Chinese hybrid technology in general, proves that a plug-in hybrid can deliver near EV running costs in the city with none of the long-distance charging anxiety, that is a very different value proposition than a pure electric vehicle, and one that could resonate strongly with Indian buyers who are not yet fully convinced by charging networks. And finally, there is Tesla. Tesla has never built a hybrid and has openly said it does not believe in the idea, seeing it as a stepping stone rather than a destination. But Tesla's entire pitch depends on the world's charging infrastructure, catching up fast enough for pure EVs to feel practical everywhere, not just in wealthy countries with dense charger networks. If BYD's hybrid approach convinces a large chunk of the global market that they can get electric driving benefits without waiting for charging networks to fully mature, that slows down the shift toward the pure EV future Tesla has bet everything on. In other words, this is not just a new engine. It is a challenge to three completely different strategies at the same time. It is also worth understanding that BYD is not doing this quietly in a lab somewhere. This technology is already reaching real customers. The Chin L and Seal 06 were among the first models to carry BYD's earlier 5th-generation hybrid system, and models built on the newer 6th-generation dual-mode platform are already rolling out in China, with international expansion following quickly behind. BYD has also been pushing efficiency updates to existing hybrid owners through over-the-air software updates, something almost unheard of for a combustion-based system, allowing fuel consumption to improve even after the car has already been sold. This is a very software company way of thinking about a mechanical engine, and it shows how differently BYD approaches vehicle development compared to traditional automakers. And BYD is not stopping at China. The company has been actively expanding its plug-in hybrid lineup into markets like India, Brazil, and parts of Southeast Asia, regions where charging infrastructure is still developing and where the appeal of a hybrid that behaves like an EV in the city but never leaves you stranded on a highway is extremely strong. When you consider that BYD also builds its own batteries, its own semiconductors, and now its own record-breaking hybrid engines, largely in-house, it becomes clear why the company can move this fast and price this aggressively. Very few automakers in the world have that level of control over their own supply chain. Of course, none of this means BYD has definitely won, or that Toyota, Tata, and Tesla will simply fade away. Each of these companies still has real strengths that BYD does not fully match yet. Toyota's reputation for long-term reliability is built on decades of real-world data, something a newer hybrid system has not had time to prove yet. Tata has deep knowledge of Indian road conditions, service networks, and price sensitivity that a foreign brand still has to earn over time. And Tesla's software ecosystem, its supercharger network, and its brand power in the premium EV space are not things that disappear just because a competitor built an efficient engine. There are also open questions that only time can answer. How will this new Xiaoyun engine hold up after 5 or 10 years of real-world use, not just controlled laboratory testing? Will BYD's aggressive expansion into new markets come with the same level of service quality and spare parts availability that established automakers already offer? And how will governments in different countries treat plug-in hybrids in the years ahead, since many regions are already tightening rules around vehicles that still burn any fuel at all, even efficiently? These are not small questions, and the answers will shape how much of a real threat this technology becomes over the next few years. Even with all of that uncertainty, one thing is already clear. BYD has proven that the debate between electric vehicles and petrol vehicles was never really about picking a side. It was about efficiency, and about giving customers a vehicle that fits how they actually live, rather than forcing them into a single philosophy. By pushing thermal efficiency past 48% and building a plug-in hybrid system that can genuinely go over 2,000 kilometers between stops, BYD has shown that a company willing to rethink an old idea from the ground up can still shake an entire industry, even one as competitive as this. Whether Toyota adapts its hybrid strategy, whether Tata leans further into hybrids for the Indian market, or whether Tesla continues to bet everything on pure electric, the next few years in the auto industry are going to be shaped heavily by how each of these companies responds to what BYD has just done. Time will tell which strategy customers ultimately choose. But for now, it is safe to say the conversation around EVs has changed, And it changed because one battery company decided it did not want to choose a side at all. If you found today's information useful and want to keep watching simple, reliable, and easy to understand videos about cars, EVs, and new technology, make sure to subscribe to the channel.